So welcome everybody. I think everyone's starting to enjoy this weather a little too much. There's supposed to be more rear ends in these seats tonight. So I'm going to have to get to work and start inviting more folks out. But thank you for taking the time to come out. You know, when it comes to getting healthy, and in fact, when it comes to being here tonight, I'm sure there are 800 other things that you should be doing, would rather be doing. But the fact that you took the time this evening to come out to try and learn a little bit more about learning healthy habits is a wonderful, kudos to you. Also to those of you who are viewing via the internet. So everyone knows, we do have people that watch us on the internet each and every week. So if you don't want to be on film, or tracked down by anybody, stay out of the front couple rows, and you're safe as could be. Okay, so otherwise, they might catch a little bit of your headshot. So, and who knows if Big Brother's watching? You never know. So, anyway, just kidding. I don't think he has the code to get in. At least I hope he doesn't. So, thank you again for everyone coming out. So I see a few new faces. Welcome. And I just wanted to let you guys know these classes that we do are designed to ultimately, as we help people get healthy, we want to make sure they get healthy and stay that way. Because, if you go to as much effort as it takes to get healthy, heaven forbid you ever have to do it again. We want to make sure you stay where you get to and that you learn the little things that make the big difference long term. The more, it's kind of funny, I've been a health coach now for about 7 years. Before, I'm actually a chiropractor, and I started using this with my patients about 7 years ago. And initially, I tried the program myself because I wanted to know, hey, does this work? What the heck is it? If you've chiropractors are probably the most skeptical people on the planet when it comes to anything new. So, naturally, I was. In fact, when I first did the program, I kind of did it to kind of prove to my friend that it didn't work, so I could kind of tell him to be quiet, and I was the one that kind of lost that little bet there. So I had a great experience. I lost nearly 15 pounds in a couple weeks, and 20 pounds over the first probably 5 weeks or so, and the program was surprisingly simple for me. In fact, so simple that I was still skeptical. I was still kind of like, this can't be right. That seemed way too easy. In fact, before that, when I was back in college, going back even a few more years, before college, I worked full time in construction. So I worked full time construction, went to school on nights and weekends. So I was a super busy guy, really active, and I was always lean and pretty healthy. Then I went to college, and all of a sudden I felt like I was sitting for about 50 hours a week, studying, sitting in class, and I was like, oh, so over the course of that first year, I kind of crept up about 15 pounds. And I was like, dang it. So that first summer came around, and I'm like, I lived about 11 miles from school, so I'm like, I'm going to ride my bike. So I started riding to and from school every day, never missed a day. And I think I calculated about 1,500 miles over the course of that 3-month period. And over that 3-month period, I only lost, and I was trying to be good about what I was eating, I lost a whole total of 5 pounds. And I was like, what the heck? What? You got to be kidding me. I worked that hard. Now, don't get me wrong, I felt very good. I know I was healthier for it, but as far as losing weight was concerned, it wasn't very effective. Going through 3 months of a lot of effort, and there were some nice hills that I had to climb. So it wasn't just flat. So, needless to say, I was really surprised. So, again, after I had lost this weight so easily, I was super skeptical. So I started having my business partner try it, and my staff members. I said, "You got to try this. Tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel." And lo and behold, they started. They had good success as well. So finally I was like, well, it's not just in my head. I'm not just some freak of nature. It seems to work for other people as well. So I rolled it out to the patients and really have never looked back. Our patients did incredibly well. People who had a lot to lose, or they just had a few pounds to lose. People who were elderly and people who were in their early 20s. Everyone seemed to do very, very good on the program. And it was nice and simple for them to follow, simple for me to coach to. So lo and behold, and it's only gotten better over the years. Back then, we didn't do these classes. We kind of did one-on-one coaching, but we didn't do any classes where we help people understand how little habits make a big difference long-term. They're difficult in and of themselves to help you get to your healthy weight, but once you get there, there's a lot of little habits that when we put them all together and put all these pieces together, all of a sudden it becomes who we are now. It becomes easy to eat healthy. It becomes much easier to make the right choices. It becomes easier to be more active and be out doing the things that we want to do. And we understand that, in fact, the whole goal is to kind of teach the right order of doing things. Most people start with exercise. Most people are like, all right, I got to start burning calories, so I got to hit the treadmill hard. And, we see people all the time, just running. I see people at the gym that look like they're going to die on the treadmill because they're dripping sweat. They're pushing as hard as they can, and they have a long way to go as far as to their goals. It really is much more simple than that. And when you do it in the right order, our bodies respond accordingly. So keep coming out to the classes. You're going to get. We don't want to give everything to you at once because then it's like taking drinking from a fire hose. It's a little bit tricky, and water will come out your nose. It's never a good thing. So, we want to give you little bite-sized pieces so you can kind of start to understand how it works and really how to make it stick. So tonight, this is actually week 12 of our 12-week series, and keep in mind this is kind of progressing along through the path. We're talking more about nutrients, vitamins, and nutrients, and really how that affects our bodies. And so really to start off, I was actually at a lecture last night, and the gal that was teaching said something that I thought was absolutely perfect that kind of leads into this. And it was, how many of us, and just kind of think to yourself, as we get older, we start to notice aches and pains. We start to notice that we're not bouncing back from things like we used to. We might have some chronic pain. We might have chronic issues. There's a lot of different chronic diseases where people, lupus, and there's diabetes, and there's lots of different conditions that are kind of chronic issues. You might have an arthritic shoulder or knee or something like that. And what happens is we kind of, in our minds, and I know this because I've had thousands of patients who say getting old is not for any wussy. I mean, it hurts. Your body aches and things don't work like they're supposed to. But it's interesting because, believe it or not, even though it feels like it's the downward spiral, it just keeps getting worse and worse, you can reverse nearly everything that we're feeling. There's obviously things like arthritis, injuries. There are things that can predispose us to hurt and predispose us to inflammation, or that might hinder our abilities to a certain degree. But we can always get healthier. Our bodies are amazing at being able to recover from even issues that we've had for 10, 20, 30 years. And I've seen, and really the most powerful thing you could do for any of those conditions is get to a healthy weight. Because of everything else that, that's involved in that. And, because as we do get towards a healthy weight, we start, there are things that we're going to start learning to do. We're going to start learning to eat more correctly. And as you eat more correctly, your body responds, because when you eat the right foods, you're not as inflamed. You don't eat, you don't have the cravings for the bad foods as much. Everything kind of starts working together how your body was meant to work. So all those aches and pains start to go away. You start to get rid of conditions that you may have thought that you were going to your grave with. So as you start this journey, as you're on the journey, be excited. When you live habits of health, your body will respond. Guaranteed. Your body will respond when you do the right things. It just takes time. Sometimes it takes, depending on what's going on, it might take a year. It might take a few years. I can remember I injured my elbow here, kind of got some tendonitis working out at the gym. And, I kind of thought hey, I could do some ultrasound, do some therapies, have my therapist work on it. I thought I'd snap out of it in, a few weeks, 3-4 weeks. I think it was nearly a year and a half before that completely went away. And I'll bet you for the first 6 or 8 months, it was super tender. But I kept doing the right stuff. I kept eating right. I would take, I took vitamins. I did the right therapies on it. And in time, it completely has gone away. It used to be where I couldn't even hardly twist off the milk, the top of the milk, the cap, because it was so tender. But given the right time and doing the right things, our bodies will respond. So be excited. And if there's one thing that motivates you to stay on the path to getting healthy, it's that your body will absolutely respond on every level when you're on that journey, when you're on the right path. So keep that in mind. Matter of fact, coming back to our topic tonight, we're talking about vitamins and nutrition. It comes down to, that's the building blocks for who we are. If we're eating good, healthy stuff, vitamins they're like little keys inside of every cell in our body. We have to have certain keys to be able to make them function the way they're meant to function. If we don't have enough vitamins, they don't function the right way. So we might have no energy. We might get sick really easy. We might bleed more than we should. We might, there's a lot of different factors that all those play a part. And same with minerals. They all work together to help us function the way we were designed to function. There's things that and the reason it's so important to eat correctly is, we'll kind of get into that, is, as we get older, sometimes we don't absorb vitamins and minerals the way we once did. So it's all that much more important to make sure we're eating correctly. So that's kind of what we're going to get started into tonight. And I'm trying to think. First of all, before I get too much into it, from last week's lesson, does anyone have any questions? We talked last week about, dousing inflammation, how the things we're eating can really help take the inflammatory levels in our bodies down so we don't hurt, so we do feel better, so we don't age prematurely. Are there any questions in regards to inflammation or even the previous few weeks that anyone has? Very good. Either that's good or I've already put you to sleep, one of the two. So hopefully not the latter. So again, you'll kind of notice the last 3 weeks here when you look at this, we talked about healthy sleep and how much that plays a part in our ability to get to and maintain a healthy weight. Sleep is critical. How isn't that? I need to name a diet. Put the name on the diet. Sleep your way to fitness or something like that. Because that would probably attract a few people, right? It is huge in our ability to get to a healthy weight. Absolutely huge. So keep that in mind. Surrounding ourselves with a good, healthy support system. That's partly what this is here. It's a network of people that are trying to do exactly what you're doing or have done exactly what you're doing. And, being around the right people make all the difference, especially for long-term success. So, and then, like I said, dousing inflammation. Inflammation, we call it the silent killer. Most people, for instance, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks. What causes atherosclerosis and those plaquings inside of our arteries and vessels, it's not necessarily the fats and the cholesterols and things like that. It's the inflammation that's caused from them. So it's that inflammation that causes the damage. And I want to say, I read something once that said 60% of people who die from heart attacks, it says, what do you think their first symptom was? The heart attack that killed them. And then what they did was, after they kind of found these statistics, they're like, that's crazy. 60% of people who die from a heart attack, their first reported symptom was the heart attack that actually killed them. When they went back and started looking, there were plenty of little signs that people just kind of ignored. Little telltale signs that saying, you know what, there's things going on here. But people, we have a tendency to kind of disregard them. If we still function, we're still able to do the things throughout the day that we need to, we kind of just put them on the back burner. So And that's really what inflammation does. Inflammation, we don't really feel it until you bend down and you tie your shoe and you throw your back out, or you do something that's trivial that just takes you down. That's kind of inflammation in the background just sneaking in on you. It sneaks up before you know it. Believe it or not, our bodies are awful at detecting pain. I know there might be some of you that would disagree with me because you have lots of aches and pains. And actually today I would agree with you because I'm kind of sore from the gym myself. But our bodies, we don't have that many pain receptors in our bodies. So when we're hurting, there's a lot of crud going on. We got stuff that we need to work on. So just keep that in mind. So let's kind of take a look at this. So our journey to optimal health. Ideally, that we're kind of hovering up here, and we just, you're always going to have hips and valleys. Everyone gets a little bit sick. There's things that happen, accidents, injuries, you name it. Ideally, this is where we're at. The disease path, and this is where many of us have been, or and many of the people in our culture are at, is we kind of just are on a steady path, declining down towards feeling really crummy. And if you kind of look at these terms here, we talk about optimal health. Optimal health obviously is us being able to really do everything that we want to be able to do. We're good and healthy, we have energy, we're happy, we're both physically, psychologically, everything is kind of clicking for us. This is where we would like everyone to be. And I think everyone in here would probably, if they had the option to say, yeah, that's what I want, I think most everybody would choose that. But then as we kind of come down, then we have healthy, you're in pretty good shape. Then what happens is we have this non-sick. And what do you suppose non-sick is? If you were to if someone were to say, well, you're not really sick, Chris? Tired. That's probably one of the very first signs that most people will feel is they just are dragging tail. They eat or something and they are dragging tail the rest of the day. Or they wake up in the morning and feel like they've been dragging their tail from the time they got out of bed. That's probably one of the first ones. How about high blood pressure, or even just a little bit of high blood pressure, kind of borderline? Your blood sugar is starting to creep up a little bit. Even being a little, just slowly, even if you're just putting on a few pounds a year, just that slow increase in weight means you're getting closer and closer to non-sick. You haven't necessarily been diagnosed with any disease, but you're well on your way that direction. So this one right here is where a good number of people are and don't even, well, I think they might know it, but they don't necessarily admit to it. So just keep that in mind. And then again, this is, ideally we want people to live a good, healthy, optimally healthy life, and then just have that line drop really fast, So that's the ultimate, just that should be everyone's goal, okay? Now, reversing the effects of a deficient diet, and if you think about it, the way that we farm, the way that we mass produce food genetically, you could get into all kinds of debate with as far as genetically modified foods and chemical fertilizers and everything else. We know that food's a commodity. Then people make lots of money off of food, so they want to produce as much as they can, as fast as they can, get the biggest yields, have the longest shelf life, have the least, the most resistance to bugs and everything else. So, there's a reason our food has changed. It's changed a lot in the last 40 or 50 years. And so we have over-farming, inorganic fertilizers, all the pesticides and everything else that comes along with the food that we consume each and every day. So when you look at that, in fact, I was at a seminar and they said if you were to look at the broccoli from today and compare it to 50 years ago, it has about 40% of the nutrition that it once did. So, and it's just because that we have farmed soils so much, we've depleted them of vitamins and minerals. And so those minerals aren't being brought through with the foods like they once were. We're not getting the same amount of nutrition from the same food. That's why it's a great place. I mean, we live in a good state. At least we have good agriculture close by. But there's a lot of people that plant gardens. I know I do and enjoy that. But it's a good reason to have a garden. You know what's happening to your food. I know Chris does. You do a lot with your gardening, and it's a wonderful thing to learn how to do. There's amazing ways to keep your do a garden all year long using compost piles to heat your greenhouse, and you name it. There's loads of different ways to do it, and I would totally encourage, if you got the space and the resources, do it. It's a wonderful thing to do for lots of reasons. But since we're talking about vitamins and minerals tonight, for that reason this evening, okay? So there are some things that we want to, again, because of the way the American diet is, there's a lot of things that we miss out on. And one of the top supplements that I always have recommended would be omega-3 fatty acids. Fish oils is a great place to get them. You can get it from Primrose or, oh goodness sakes, is it up there? I'm going to blank on it. Flaxseed. Yes, flaxseed. Thank you. That's the one I was blanking on. But omega-3 fatty acids are fantastic for our body. They're good to help bring down that level of inflammation in our body. So we have omega-3 fatty acids. We also have omega-6 fatty acids. The thing about these is they're called essential fatty acids because we have to have them in our bodies, and we don't make them. There's a lot of things that our body can make and generate on its own, but these fatty acids our body cannot do by itself. So we have to take it in via food. And so if we were eating a very healthy diet, we would have a very good balance of omega-3 fatty acids and the omega-6 fatty acids. Omega-6 fatty acids are found in a lot of red meats, chicken, red meats. And so typically we're going to have, with our American diets, we have a lot more omega-6 fatty acids than we do omega-3. So ideally, we want to try and draw those closer. And unless you eat fish probably 3 or 4 days a week regularly, you're probably deficient to some degree. And so we want to try and, that's why supplementation, even with a very good diet, sometimes supplementation is necessary. And this is coming. I'm not a huge proponent of people taking buckets of vitamins. I know people. I mean, I don't think anyone should have to live on 9, 10 different bottles of supplements. I do believe that there are some that, here and there that people need to use, but I certainly am not someone who thinks you need a big, long counter full of supplements. I've worked with doctors who, their patients would come into their appointments with literally a grocery bag just filled with different vitamins that, just to say, am I taking the right stuff? So, and throughout this whole thing, it's a good idea to, if you're curious as to, do I have the right stuff? Am I eating the right stuff? Am I deficient? There's blood tests you can do. There are ways of determining if you're deficient. So seek out some help from someone who's really good at that. Your husband, I know, is very good at that. So, anyways, if anyone here is looking for somebody, we can certainly point you in the right direction. So again, if you look at this, omega-3s, all these different things, they actually have done studies where omega-3 fatty acids have been very effective in helping people with depression, some anxiety disorders. Our brains are actually made up predominantly or largely of omega-3 fatty acids. So you can understand how if you're deficient in your diet and you're way deficient, that how it might affect your brain and how you're thinking. So keep in mind that omega-3 fatty acids are wonderful for, and especially for young children during their developmental, adult, really young children. It's fantastic for them and helping them to learn and to grow. So, and then again, make sure you're getting the right amount based upon what your needs are. So, also, there's this one right here. Vitamin D is actually a hormone. We call it vitamin D. It's actually a hormone. And that this is one of the ones that our body can make. And if you take a look at what vitamin, it's huge at boosting your immune system. Matter of fact, there's, in many of the equatorial regions of the world, where people are out in the sun all the time in shorts and things like that, they have a much lower predominance of many cancers because of the fact that they have a lot of vitamin D that their bodies are producing. And if you think about North America, though, or again, America in general, we have been blasted with we need to wear sunscreen whenever we go outside, right? And the sun is what helps us generate or make vitamin D. But what happens is so many of us, when we do go outside, we lather up in sunscreen that we don't really produce it effectively. We don't produce enough of it. So I've read studies anywhere from 40 to 80, even 90% of, that say somewhere in that range, that much of the population is deficient in vitamin D. And I think probably I heard it the best put was this: if you're not getting 20 minutes of direct sunlight each and every day, then you're probably deficient. And that means without sunscreen. So, and that'd be like you with a tank top on or shorts or something like that, where your arms are exposed, your face, where you're getting enough sun rays where you're actually producing enough vitamin D. Vitamin D and supplementation is really easy. If you look in milk, a lot of people think, oh, I should be good with vitamin D. I drink milk, and my cereal is fortified with vitamin D or whatever. If you look at those, they have about 400 IUs typically in a serving, and IUs for international units. Adults should be somewhere around probably 2,000 to 4,000 IUs a day. So if you want to drink, a whole bunch of milk, you might get enough each day. You might have other issues. In fact, you would have other issues. So just keep that in mind. There are some different supplements. There's pill form. There's actually liquid forms that are really virtually tasteless. They're kind of two drops actually is enough. Is like I think about 4,000 IUs. So there's some great supplementation out there if you're not getting enough. Otherwise, go out and work in the yard for 20 minutes. And just so you guys understand, the sun in and of itself, this is just kind of making sense of not being afraid of getting in the sunshine. It's the burning of our skin that increases our risk for skin cancer. So if you go out in the sun for 20 or 30 minutes, most anybody, there are some very fair-skinned people that 10 or 15 minutes is going to be plenty. But typically, if you go outside for 20 or 30 minutes, most everybody is going to do just fine. It's not going to burn their skin, and they will get plenty of health benefits from the sunshine. It's really just that continual burning over and over that causes the damage that leads to skin cancer. So just so you know. Heads up. Also, with vitamin D, in fact, this is just some of the different studies we pulled this from, but it might be one of the single most underrated nutrients in the world. This is where it was. So it says over 40% of Americans are deficient. I'm pretty certain I read one where it said 80%. They said that 80% of America was deficient. Wait a second, maybe I misunderstand that. Here's what it was. Because people who are deficient often have fibromyalgia type symptoms, meaning they have a lot of achy muscles and joints. And now that I think about it, I believe it was 86% of people who have those just random achy fibromyalgia type symptoms. I believe it was 86% were vitamin D deficient. So, keeping that in mind, vitamin D is a huge, especially for women, because women suffer a lot from those types of aches and pains. So vitamin D is huge. Helps prevent prostate cancer, breast cancer, depression. In Portland, in Portland and Seattle, they see the sun maybe 4 months of the year. The rest of the time it's cloudy and drizzling. So they, I'm pretty sure they're the highest per capita of depression medications in the country. So, that a lot of that has to do with, the fact that they don't ever see the sun enough to get any vitamin D naturally. Again, fibromyalgia, many times it's misdiagnosed because of the deficiencies. And there's your recommendations, 2,000 to 4,000 IUs. Vitamin B. Vitamin B is a big one because has anyone ever had a vitamin B injection? Nobody? A lot of times, in fact, there's a lot of diet programs out there, like if you go to a medical doctor, sometimes they will actually give you, as part of a weight loss regimen, a vitamin B shot, because vitamin B is huge when it comes to increasing energy. If you are deficient, you will be drained all the time. When you get that up, it dramatically helps increase your energy. And so, the reasoning is, if you have better energy, you're going to move more, so you're going to burn more calories, right? So that's kind of the reason that they do that, and it certainly isn't a bad thing. Dark green vegetables is a great place to get vitamin B. Obviously, if you're deficient, the fastest way to get it up would be to get a nice, good B complex vitamin to help drive that back up. It's fantastic for when we were treating a lot of patients. Whenever someone had nerve injuries, whether it be from a herniation, an accident, what have you, we always had them supplement with vitamin B because it helps with healing of nerves. It's great for your mind. It's great for, so it's good for your body in a lot of respects. There's a lot of B vitamins down through 12. So, understanding what those are, where you find them. Folic acid, that's one for, I know my wife's taking it's a pathology physiology class right now online, and her professor, I remember listening to his lecture online, and he said his whole thing is any woman of childbearing years should be supplementing with folic acid because of the effect that it can have on a baby should it come into the world, unexpectedly. So basically his thing was, if you are of childbearing years, you should have that bottle sitting next to your toothbrush, and you should be taking it every day. Because first of all, it's dirt cheap, and it has that big of an impact. So just keep that in mind. So be familiar. Again, we're really kind of lucky. I mean, you got to be careful, but there's such a wealth of information that you can tap into using the internet, looking things up, coming to these classes, talking with us. There are some fantastic physicians in the Valley I know that are great with supplementation. So, I mean, if you're having symptoms and you need to get those levels up, ideally we get them up, supplement to get them up to the right level, and then we fill in the gaps with start getting you to eat correctly to where you can sustain that. Ideally, you're getting all your nutrition from your food. So, and that would be the best case scenario, understanding that sometimes that's not possible. And honestly, sometimes it's not possible because people just know that they're not ready to make those decisions yet. Part of getting healthy is learning to make more of those good decisions than the bad decisions, but it certainly doesn't mean you have to be perfect. You just have to kind of be steadily improving. And then also the antioxidants. These vitamin A, C, D, E, and K are all wonderful as far as their the antioxidant properties that they have. They're great for our immune system. Vitamin K is good for helping you stop bleeding. So don't take that if you're on blood thinners, because it'll mess things up. So, but again, all of these, it's ideal to seek a little bit of guidance or do plenty of reading, do plenty of research to understand. It's also important to understand where you're getting your nutrition from, because there are a lot of vitamins. You might go into Rite Aid or something like that. Vitamins do lose potency over time. The longer they've been on the shelf, their efficacy kind of just get a little bit less and less effective. So get good vitamins. Also, some of them are chemically made. They're derived through chemical processes, and so ideally you can get there's a lot of supplements where you can get all those vitamins from whole foods. So they're the actual vitamins from the actual foods, as opposed to something that's been synthesized through fantastic laboratories and all of their magic that they do. So because our bodies are pretty clever, they know when things are cheap and when they're not, or when they're the right thing. So make sure you do your best there at least. Okay, key minerals. Now, calcium, magnesium, selenium, zinc, all of these are great for our bones, but they're actually much more than that. Warding off cancer, they increase testosterone. This is really big for guys. Testosterone, in fact, I actually just read this recently. Testosterone is what makes guys guys. You know, it gives us drive, it gives us ambition, it helps us build lean muscle, maintain lean muscle. It helps us want to, it's that little competitive edge inside of us. That's what testosterone does. It helps keeps our hearts healthy. So what happens is for guys from about the age of 21 on, we kind of, about 2% a year, we start trickling down. We start losing our testosterone production. So, a lot of people feel like as we get older, it just kind of starts, we feel the effects of it. Especially with our drive, with our weight, it starts creeping up. So one of the best things you can do to drive your testosterone back up is to get to a healthy weight. Lean. Building lean muscle, believe it or not, kind of perpetuates our body's production of testosterone. So, but all of these here are necessary building blocks also for producing it. Just keeping that in mind. Calcium, magnesium, those are, have you ever had times when you're getting lots of cramps, maybe in your calves and your legs and your feet? Oftentimes, if you're getting a bunch of cramps, it's either because you're dehydrated or you have an imbalance of calcium, magnesium. Calcium, magnesium works with our heart function as well, the beating of our heart. So all of these are super important, and it's critical. If we're all trying to build healthier new bodies, we need to make sure we put the right building blocks in. I think we've all heard the old adage, you are what you eat. And literally, we become what we eat. I think I've shared this story once before, but there's a lot of new faces, so I'll share it again. I've got a cousin who a few years ago was diagnosed with diabetes. Last summer, we went to a family reunion where we were all staying at the same hotel somewhere in the mountains of Utah. And then that morning, we all were up, we were down at the breakfast place, and we're getting breakfast. And it was actually, they had some really good choices for breakfast. They also had the waffle maker and the cereals and things like that. And my cousin, who's diabetic, type 2 diabetic, the first thing that she did was she went over, she made herself a waffle. She put, she spread her butter on, and she poured one little thing of syrup on one half, another little thing of syrup on the other half. And then she had a big tall glass of orange juice, and I want to say she had like a Danish as well. It was 100% carbs. The exact food that would cause someone to become diabetic over time, that was the food that she chose. And there was great choices there. There was some healthy fruit, some good protein. There's a bunch of eggs, some very good choices. And she went straight to the one that would cause someone to become diabetic. You absolutely become what you eat. If you eat like a diabetic, eventually you will become a diabetic. Keep in mind, there are a small fraction of people who, thanks to good genetics, maybe not, but more often than not, if you eat like that, you will become like that. So just keep that in mind. So if we're all trying to rebuild a new us and make it better, faster, healthier, happier, we got to put the right nutrients in. We got to eat things, and we got to supplement ourselves correctly to where we have the building blocks necessary to be that person we want to be. I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly the number of days, but it's almost exactly a year that it takes for every cell in our body to reproduce. And so when one of our cells gets old and it dies, it reproduces before it does that. So if you think about it, literally every year we're a completely new person. So if we start putting good things into our body every day, and we really decrease the amount of crud we're putting in, next year we will be a much better person than we were before, much healthier, much happier. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning, if there's one thing that you could do that's more powerful than anything else to affect your life on every level, both mentally, physically, spiritually, you name it, it's getting to a healthy weight and getting on the path to becoming healthier. Just being, it doesn't matter if it takes you 3, 4, 5 years to do it, as long as it's steadily going down. So just make sure you get on the right path. Ideally, you do it much faster. We certainly, with the program, we have the means to make that happen very quickly and very safely. So take advantage of that. Who in here has Dr. Anderson's Habits of Health? Sir. So most everybody. If you don't, I highly recommend Dr. A's Habits of Health book. Matter of fact, he's coming out with a brand new book that I would also, it's just now available, and I want to say that it'll ship early next month. You can get an order right now. It's it's Discovering, crud. Does anyone?
Optimal Health.
Yeah, is it Discovering Optimal Health? Is that? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And that book is much more about getting your head wrapped around becoming healthy, and really it's really a lot more about, I think, the psyche, which is probably the most powerful part about getting healthy, making sure that you're thinking like a healthy person. So many people want to be healthy, but they don't think like a healthy person. They still think like, even people who have been incredibly successful. I've had people that we've helped lose well over 100 pounds, and they look fantastic. They feel fantastic, but when they see themselves, they still think and feel like the heavy or the fat person that they were. And it's a very hard thing for them to kind of get past. Dr. A's book is about helping you really get your head wrapped around being the healthy person you should be. So highly recommend it. Absolutely recommend it. Dr. Andrew. And one of the neat things about both Dr. A's Habits of Health as well as this precursor to it, Discovering Optimal Health, is, he writes in a very conversational way. He takes very difficult data and information to understand, and he really puts it down into, a very easy understanding, easy to read. You can follow along. Puts lots of pictures. That's what I love about it. I'm all about pictures. So just keep that in mind. If you want help, if you're struggling in any way, those are going to be great additions to your library. Okay, so again, there's anti-inflammatory. And I think we talked more about this last week. All of these different vitamins, as we take them together and we're not deficient and we're eating correctly, bringing down that inflammatory level will dramatically improve our energy. It'll improve how we feel, how we want it, our desire to get out and do things. Because, most people, when they hurt all over, don't really feel like going out and being active, and they don't feel like doing things that just make them more sore. So keep that in mind. And then this is the last thing that I want to talk about is fiber. I want to say we talked about it a few months ago in one of the earlier lessons, but fiber is huge, important for us on many different levels. From just the way we digest, it's fantastic at helping us take out cholesterol, take out fats out of our body. There's different types of fiber. Some of them absorb those fats and take them out. Other fibers are designed to kind of just rake the lining of your guts out as they pass through. We need it's kind of like in your engine. If all those carbons start building up around the valves or inside your engine and it starts sputtering, it starts not being as responsive, issues start, you blow more oil, you burn more smoke. Your car doesn't run as good. When your guts are coated because we're not eating enough roughage and fiber to really just flush them out, what happens is we don't absorb things as well. That built up, all that built up residue on the lining of your gut becomes inflammatory. When things become inflammatory, what happens is your gut starts leaking. Things pass through the lining of your gut that shouldn't, which causes a whole another myriad of issues. A lot of autoimmune conditions are created that way because our things are passing through our guts, and our body recognizes it as a foreign invader, and it starts attacking. And then all of a sudden it recognizes itself as foreign, so it attacks itself. So that's what those autoimmune conditions are. We've talked about carbohydrates and how they affect whether we're in a fat burning or a fat storage mode. Carbohydrates typically are going to make us want to store. Our body's reaction to carbohydrates is just that. It's going to want to store all those sugars. And so those fibers, when you have a high fiber diet, one, it slows how quickly that food turns to sugar, which allows our body time to burn it before it wants to store it. Ideally, that's what we're doing, is we're burning energy as we're taking it in before our, I've kind of mentioned it before as like a revolving door. The energy gets stored just long enough for it to kind of come back around and be pulled out again so we can burn it up. So eat lots of the foods with fiber. Learn what they are. Find out which ones you like best. Acquire tastes for ones that maybe you don't care for. There's a lot of foods that, when you learn how to do it the right way, you might actually enjoy it. So try, experiment, work with it. These, all of these are going to be fantastic for you. And also, fiber helps you feel full longer. So if we feel full, we don't want to eat as much. So it makes sense that that's going to be helpful long term for, if we're eating correctly, what's great is we really don't have the cravings for the junk. Not to say that we don't enjoy them from time to time, but it's not one of those things that, there are certain things that I do that I can't not, it's like, it's all I can do to try and resist. If I make a bunch of like burritos or something at home, Mexican food, man, I can't tell you how bad I want to drink a Pepsi with that. I've got these connections in my brain, so there's certain things that, but when we're eating the right foods, when I exercise really hard, I don't have any desire to eat junk because I'm like, wow, I had a great workout today. I don't crave it, I don't desire it, I just feel like eating good food. I feel like drinking water. I don't feel like drinking soda. So, as we do the right things, our body actually will respond to that. It will crave that. It will learn that, hey, that I actually feel good here, and we create those connections in our noggin up here, and it makes a difference. So just keep that in mind. There's a ton of CoQ10, there's chromium, there's lots of different supplements. I would say, honestly, get into Dr. Anderson's book. He does a very good job of kind of delving into them, explaining them. Understand, if you have conditions that are, that you're like, man, I always have I get tired really easy. I can't sleep. Whatever they are, if you have things that you don't really understand, either seek some help, ask us questions so we can maybe at least point you in the right direction, or do a little bit of research. Start doing some reading because, like I mentioned before, our bodies are not meant to get more and more decrepit and feel crummier and crummier and crummier all the time. If we're doing the right things and supporting ourselves the right way, then we should be able to really live a very active and a wonderful life. One of the things we recorded a radio program on this today, but one of the things that I think it's good for everybody to understand is, most everybody has aches and pains. I hurt almost every day from the stinking gym. I don't ask for any sympathy because it's self-inflicted, but I hurt because I'm trying to build my body healthier and stronger. But I can do anything and everything I want to do. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm really able to be physically active. And I know there's a lot of people that can't do that because they hurt all the time. Start by just getting up and getting moving. Start eating right. Start living these habits of health, and you will see things that you thought you were going to take to your grave disappear. You will absolutely get rid of a lot of those aches and pains. And those of you who have been on the program and really gotten down to your healthy weight already know that a lot of those aches and pains are gone. So just keep that in mind. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if there's one thing I could say is be excited about being on the program because you're gonna feel better in every way. And keep coming out, bring your friends, and join us, ask questions when you're here. If you don't understand something, man, raise your hand. If you hear something that maybe sounds contradictory to what we're saying and you don't understand, bring it up, because if you're questioning it, likely someone else is too, and they're just too shy to raise their hand. So don't hesitate to bring up questions, concerns, because we're here to try and make sense out of all the craziness that is weight loss and getting healthy. So make sure you ask questions. Thank you for coming out, and we will see you again next week, same time, same place. And Have a wonderful week.